How to import prescription drugs legally. Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the legal requirements for importing prescription drugs. Importing prescription drugs can be a tricky business, so it's important to know what the law says before you start. In this video, I'll walk you through the legal requirements for importing prescription drugs in the United States, and I'll give you some tips on how to do it safely and legally. What are the legal requirements for importing prescription drugs? The legal requirements for importing prescription drugs vary from country to country. In the United States, the Food and Drug Administration is responsible for regulating the importation of prescription drugs. The FDA has a number of regulations in place that govern the importation of prescription drugs. These regulations are designed to protect consumers from unsafe and counterfeit drugs. What are the FDA's regulations on importing prescription drugs? The FDA's regulations on importing prescription drugs are set out in Title 21 of the Code of Federal Regulations, CFR. These regulations are divided into two parts. 1. Part 211, Current Good Manufacturing Practice for Finished Pharmaceuticals. 2. Part 212, Importation of Drugs and Devices. Part 211 sets out the requirements that drug manufacturers must meet in order to produce safe and effective drugs. Part 212 sets out the requirements that importers must meet in order to import drugs into the United States. What do I need to do to import prescription drugs legally? In order to import prescription drugs legally, you must meet the following requirements. 1. The drugs must be approved by the FDA. Point 2. The drugs must be imported from a country that has an approved drug approval process. Point 3. The drugs must be imported by a licensed importer. Point 4. The drugs must be accompanied by a valid import permit. How do I get an import permit? To get an import permit, you must submit a written request to the FDA. The FDA will review your request and issue an import permit if it meets all of the requirements. What are the risks of importing prescription drugs? There are a number of risks associated with importing prescription drugs. These risks include: 1. The drugs may be counterfeit or adulterated. Point 2. The drugs may not be safe or effective. Point 3. The drugs may not be approved for use in the United States. How can I import prescription drugs safely and legally? If you're considering importing prescription drugs, it's important to do your research and make sure that you're doing it safely and legally. Here are a few tips. 1. Only import drugs from a reputable source. Point 2. Make sure the drugs are FDA approved. Point 3. Get a valid import permit from the FDA. Point 4. Use the drugs under the supervision of a doctor. The FDA has a number of regulations in place that govern the importation of prescription drugs. However, it's important to do your research and make sure that you're doing it the right way. Unsafe and counterfeit drugs. By following the tips in this video, you can import prescription drugs safely and legally. Thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below.